We are back at it with another Learner Center Collaborative webinar. Excited to have you here today. As everyone is coming in to the webinar, I want to give folks a chance to log in and get settled in. For our attendees, you could be anywhere in the world right now, but you decided to be here with us. And on behalf of the Learner Center Collaborative, we want to say thank you for spending your time with us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you're at in the country. As you come in, we'll spend just a few moments giving everyone a chance to just settle in. And get logged in. As you log in, please let us know who you are, where you're from, what you do. Drop your name, title, and school district or state in the chat so we get a chance to know who's here. We got some dynamic speakers today, a phenomenal topic. We're going to share a lot of great insights with you. We want to get a chance to build some connection with you. So please, in the chat, introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what your job is, where you're from, and what you do, and get a chance to celebrate you. Just a few moments here after everyone gets settled in, we'll kick off the webinar, have a great conversation as everyone starts to join in. I do want to take a quick moment and shout out, if you don't mind, Craig and Juliette, shout out Bobby Ann. Bobby Ann's from Deer Lakes up in the Pennsylvania area. Bobby Ann's a beautiful mind. If you get a chance to follow their work up in Deer Lakes, please check out their website. Bobby Ann, great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us. All right. I would like to open us up here and get us a chance to welcome our special guests. As we do that here, I do want to just share we're excited to have you. Our topic today is the power of storytelling and building engaged learning communities. We've got some great speakers today, and I want to make sure we give them a chance to introduce themselves. Mr. Craig, can you kick us off by letting us know who you are, where you're from, and what you do? Thanks for being here, Craig.
Sure. My name is Craig Heath. I am the superintendent at Mentor Public Schools. It's a district of about 7,000 students. We are located right on Lake Erie in Northeast Ohio, probably about 20 minutes east of Cleveland. Suburban district, probably 85% white. Considered a wealthy district in the state right now, even though we're still always fighting for those funds, but a great district overall. We've got great students, great teachers, and a lot of good things rolling up here.
And I'm Juliette. I'm the communications officer at Lynwood Unified School District, which is in Southern California. We have about 12,000 students. We're an urban school district. And I have been here for about 2 years now, kind of developing those strategies on how to tell stories from the We Are Lynwood perspective. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you both joining us today. My name is Marlon Stiles. I'm a proud partner at the Learner Center Collaborative. Got to take a moment, shout out the team as well. We have Ashley, Paul, I saw Jesse and Brittany in the chat as well. Thank you both for joining us. We got a great team at Learner Center Collaborative and always appreciate the support. Before I transition into the webinar, I do want to shout out Miss Diane from Santa Ana USD from the Teaching and Learning Department. Great to have SAUSD in the building. We've got a dynamic conversation ready to roll for you today. So if you're all set, let's jump right into it. Before we get into our dialogue, I do want to share our mission, vision, and value statement here from Learner Center Collaborative. You know, our vision is we envision education ecosystems where all learners know who they are. They thrive in community and actively engage in the world as their best selves. You can see our mission is to partner with educators to define whole learner outcomes, design meaningful learning experiences, and create enabling conditions for learner-centered education. That's who we are, it's what we stand for, and what we believe here at Learner Center Collaborative. Our strategy is very dynamic. It's 3 parts. You can see networks are part of our strategy, partnerships, and research. Today, we're going to feature a few of our partners as they share some really cool strategies and ways to go about really elevating the student voice inside school systems. Our network expands across the country. We're teaming up and supporting school systems and districts all across the country, impacting hundreds of thousands of students. We just take a lot of great pride in being a trusted partner. Some of our partners will be featured on the call today. We're excited to have Lynwood Unified School District and Mentor Public Schools on the webinar, being featured partners in the conversation. You can see we have some state partnerships as well. One of my favorite quotes here at Learner Center Collaborative, you can see there on the screen, just something that gets my heart racing as we talk about possibilities and what we can do for learners inside of our Learner Center school communities. Our approach here at Learner Center Collaborative, you can visit our website, at any time and see all information all about our ecosystem. As you can see here on the screen, multiple parts as it relates to our ecosystem. We are going to feature one key component of our ecosystem today as it relates to communication. We do feature whole learner outcomes. You can see learner profiles. We've got some examples for you from some of our feature school systems, what we want our kids to know and be able to do. You can see our whole learner outcomes. Associated with our whole learner outcomes are different components to a learning models. We won't be really getting into that today, but do want to put your eyes on that resource as well. School design is a key component of our learner-centered ecosystem. And last but not least, the enabling conditions. As we get into our enabling conditions today, our key focus is going to be on communications, and our number of enabling conditions inside of our ecosystem: coherence, partnerships, talent and development, and aligned systems. Our feature today is communications. So with that being said, would love to jump into some conversation with our panelists around the topic of storytelling. Really excited to have both of you on the panel today. We've been studying your work. We've been following the stories coming out of your school districts. We've noticed you've got some really engaging strategies that centers the voices of learners inside your school community, and really excited to have you share. So we've got a series of questions as panelists. Please just share some of your resources, share some strategies for our participants who are here and our special guests. There'll be some resources dropped inside the chat. I just want to get you comfortable knowing that we are recording the session. At the conclusion of the webinar, you will get a chance to receive that via email as a recording to go back and chew through anything that captured your curiosity. We'll also be dropping in resources and give you a chance to drop some questions for us in the chat. So if you hear anything that sparks your curiosity, you want to know a little bit more about as you get into the webinar, please drop that question in the chat for us. We'll do our best to incorporate it into our conversation. So Superintendent Heath, I'm going to pick on you first. Little do our guests know you volunteered to go first, but we're going to pick on you first if you don't mind. As we studied Lynwood and mentor public schools, something that really captures my curiosity is this notion of centering the voices of our learners. As you think about storytelling, oftentimes some people think, well, I am a storyteller. I'm not part of the communications teams, or you might have school systems that don't have a communications department, and a superintendent might be the key storyteller, or you may have a big department that is able to storytell. As you think about who the storytellers are in your school district, can you tell us a little bit more about why you consider them to be storytellers, and who might those storytellers be?
Well, I would say, first and foremost, I tend to be the face of the district, good or bad, I guess, in that regard. So I do a lot of the storytelling myself. We try to do that through our board meetings as well, where my superintendent report is always focused on some of the student learning that's taking place, some of the good things that our kids are doing. We actually also use our board members quite heavily in our storytelling. We have a student achievement update in every single board meeting. Again, that's really focusing on what those students are doing on a daily basis in our buildings. And yeah, so I think first and foremost, it's those leaders at the top. We are very fortunate. We've got a pretty solid communications department in our district as well. I have a director of communications and a videographer that work in our district. Both of them are coming to us from the news side of things originally. So one was she was actually a weather forecaster at one point out in Washington, if I remember correctly. And she is our director of communications now. And then our videographer has worked in the news business for many, many years, and they do an unbelievable job of taking everything that we're trying to do from our students and really put it in a form that's going to be quick and easy for our public to understand. So those are kind of our starting points. I would say the most effective thing that we have running right now, though, is as we've gone through this strategic planning process with our with our work with the Learner-Centered Collaborative is we've really involved our students being those frontline storytellers as well. We utilize students in our guiding coalition because we wanted the adults in the room to hear directly from them as they were building the goals and the action steps that we have in our strategic plan. And when we've started our communication process, now that the strategic plan has been approved, we're utilizing those students again to help us tell that story. The one strategy, which we might get into a little bit more in detail here in just a little bit, but we use video obviously for a lot of what we do. Little 90-second clips here or there, maybe a bigger 3 to 5 minute story that we might put together. But we've tried to have our students in front of the camera now as well to tell their experiences, whether it's on the guiding coalition of the strategic planning process or what they're doing in the classroom. And that's really kind of how we've crafted our storytelling here so far this school year.
I think here at Lynwood Unified, yes, of course, our board members, our superintendent, those folks at the top are our primary storytellers. But I would argue that everyone in the district is a storyteller, from the student to the teacher to the parent that attends our workshops. They are kind of on the ground, whereas we are at the top. We're not in the classroom. We're not at the campus every day. So it's really important for me to be able to empower kind of our different stakeholders, our different community members to be able to tell that story. Here at Lynwood, our hashtag is We Are Lynwood. And so it takes a ton of people to make that, We Are Lynwood story and to be able to tell that story. And so what we've done here is we've implemented a social media ambassador program where we have 1 to 2 people, staff members, classified or certificated, basically run the social media for their school to tell the story from the school's perspective, whether it's from the classroom or different activities that they have, from, crazy hair day to, having a visitor to come speak to the students and inspire them. So we have done, I think, a pretty good job of developing that program and empowering our students, our staff, and our family to help contribute to that story so that it's not just coming from 1 to 2 voices.
Love the excitement around when you mentioned the hashtag. You could see your spirit really start to get excited. A big smile came on your face. But I love the idea that both of you are talking about, all the way from board members, storytellers, all the way down to anybody who's associated with the school community, having a space to contribute to the storytelling in a pretty authentic way. I really would love to pick your brains about a topic, I'll call it strategic themes. As you think about storytellers in your school community, really trying to build that sense of engagement across the community. Could you share a little bit about how do you go about identifying what those strategic themes are in your communications plan? How you select those themes, what those themes may be, the impact you're hoping that they have. Before we get into strategy, I would love to just hear your big visionary minds talk about those strategic themes that you fold into your big communications plan. Juliette, if I could have you kick us off, if you don't mind talking about strategic themes, please.
Sure. So at Lynwood, we actually just launched our strategic plan last year. So we've been kind of using the year to kind of roll out this strategic plan, our 4 key tenets. So at Lynwood, we have 4 pillars that we kind of really center our work around, which is unlocking brilliance, which is empowering our students and giving them the tools to succeed academically and personally. We have cultivating talent, which is retaining our staff, but also kind of providing them those tools to be able to teach our students. Uplifting community, that's engaging our community partners, our families, to kind of help us in this long-term effort to support our students. And modeling excellence, which is providing those 21st century state-of-the-art facilities that our students need to succeed. And so the way that I've used these 4 pillars is I've kind of broken them down into ways that are understandable. So if it's cultivating talent, that means I'm going to focus my stories or my social media posts on any events or activities that highlight our teachers to show how amazing, the amazing talent that we have here. If it's unlocking brilliance, that might mean I'm going to make a video on our different CTE or STEM programs here to show what our students are learning. If it's uplifting community, today is National Parent Involvement Day. So I went out and took video, shot photos of the different activities that our schools are holding to thank our parents for their involvement and their engagement. And then lastly, modeling excellence. We just passed a bond facilities measure. So I'm using that as an opportunity to show like these are the things that we're going to be able to do now, thanks to your support as a community. So every piece of content that I create, those are kind of the key pieces that I'm looking at strategically. How can we tell our story by incorporating our different pillars? So it's a work in progress. You're experimenting a lot, but I think so far that's kind of the way that I've broken it down into a way that's understandable for people.
I would say just from the mentor perspective, Marlon, yeah, we're still fairly early in this journey. We literally just passed our strategic plan in August, and we're still in the process right now of kind of approaching it from an overview standpoint. So we're still getting the whole concept out to the community of, hey, here's our strategic plan. Here are the 5 outcomes that we have, and then starting to prioritize some of those big moves. I think the most strategic piece that we've had so far is our board members have really embraced this. Because I'll be quite honest, we have a very diverse community politically, um, on both extremes of the political spectrum, and we have those individuals sitting on our board as well. And so we have to be very strategic with what common ground we can find politically in our district. And it's been great to see all 5 of our board members really embracing that, even at the board table during board meetings. When they have conversations, they are actually pointing back to our strategic plan now, which I think is great. Because even if they're disagreeing about something, those themes that are coming out of that strategic plan are things that they can say, well, this aligns with the strategic plan. That's why this needs to be important now, and this is why we need to have this discussion. So really, that's been the biggest thing for us right now, is just getting this high level overview of the strategic plan out while we're starting to prioritize what those big moves are going to be here that we utilize this year. Because again, we're looking at a probably 5, 6, 7 year rollout. We keep joking around. It all depends on how long I'm going to be in the district until retirement, and that's how long the strategic plan is going to go, because we want to do it once. And it's been great though to have that politically diverse board really engage with this strategic plan and really point their passion areas back to the plan and articulate that to our community through those board meetings right now. So that's kind of where we're sitting as far as strategic themes. It's really kind of something that's ongoing here, but we're looking forward to getting this highlight campaign of our strategic plan. It just started the last couple of days here, and going to be rolling out in earnest here in the next couple of weeks, heading into winter break.
That's fantastic. I'm really excited. Hopefully, we get a chance to dig into that notion of campaigns as it relates to your storytelling as well. Before we leave strategic themes, both of you hinted at this notion of the importance of alignment. Um, could you talk a little bit about why it's so important? You both hinted at it in your own special way. Why is it so important that once you identify your strategic themes, before you move into strategy about the types of stories to tell, like how are you going about ensuring that you've got alignment in those storytellings, or the stories that you're telling? And then also, why is alignment so important to you?
I think from our perspective in Mentor right now, there are a lot of distractions out there. Um, I think more culturally than anything else. And the strategic themes that we have, I believe, are really what we can utilize to refocus our energies. Yeah, we can get down into the weeds with a lot of different things, politically and culturally in our community. But what it comes back to is, what are those experiences that we're creating for our kids on a daily basis? And to have that plan in place and those outcomes in place and these big moves that we're prioritizing now in place, being able to point back to that is really aligning the conversations that we're having. Now, we'll still have some things on the periphery that we're going to have to deal with, but again, what does it come back to, and what is the most important thing? And that's the student and what their experiences are in our district. And it's great to be able to have that to really align the conversations that we have moving forward.
And I agree with that. Because at the same time, you also have to create buy-in. You have to make sure that your families and your staff believe that you're you're a leader in educational excellence. You want them to believe that you want the best for students. And you have to build that sense of community and belonging and a shared purpose, so that they can, partner with you as you are rolling out the different initiatives, or the different programs. So that's kind of where why it's important for me to be able to align that messaging. It's just being able to speak with one voice across the board and having our community believe in us as a district.
I
Thank
love that phrase, Juliette, shared purpose. I'm going to steal that. That's awesome.
Before we get into some additional conversation, I'm curious to hear you pause for a moment and let's focus our thoughts on our learners specifically. As you think about ways or opportunities that you are centering the voices of the learners in your community, can you share some ideas or strategies about how you're specifically inspiring your learners to be part of the storytelling? Craig, I know you mentioned a few strategies before with the Guiding Coalition, but as you think about your entire school community, how are those learners starting to surface?
So again, we wanted to make sure that the students were at the forefront of everything that we're doing. And as we were creating the strategic plan, they were sitting in the room with us. As we start to kind of unravel this a little bit more and start to get this message out to our community, one of the very quick and easy ways for us to tell our story is getting in front of our parent organizations at each of the buildings. So what we're now doing is those 7 or 8 students that we had in our guiding coalition are now, well, 2 things. Number one, they joined us at the board meeting when we rolled out the strategic plan, and they were an integral part of that presentation to the board. So they were presenting the learner profile and saying, these are the things that we know we need to be successful in the future. And for them to be able to tell that story from a firsthand standpoint was so powerful. So now that we're taking this little show on the road, so to speak, each building that I'm going to, I'm plucking that student that was on the guiding coalition that represents that building to come with me to those parent organization meetings to do the presentations with me. So that way it's not just coming from me, as a storyteller, it's coming from the student as well. One of our big moves in our district is demonstrations of learning and finding ways for students to do that in different ways. It's not just a test score. It's not just writing a paper. It's how can you demonstrate that you've learned this content knowledge, or how can you demonstrate that you've learned this skill? And what better way for students to develop some of those skills than actually doing those presentations with the adults in the room and sharing their experiences. So that's just a couple of ways that we've kind of engaged with our students and really trying to build their skill set coming out of that strategic plan and that learner profile in a way that is also helping us share and market that learner profile and that strategic plan. So it's kind of come full circle with all of that now.
And I think for us and for me, as from a communications perspective, to be able to have our different community stakeholders be able to share our story is to build relationships with them, have that trust and that confidence. Um, for example, a couple of years ago, maybe my first year here, we had a really tough negotiations season with our teachers. We came through, and it's just been about repairing that relationship since then. And so one of the ideas I proposed was creating kind of like a mini marketing video series for each of our elementary schools. And that included getting our teachers to participate in that because they are such an important force at each of the schools. So I know that after we finished our series, our teachers were really appreciative that we elevated their voices. Because I feel like sometimes they just don't feel heard, or they don't feel like district appreciates them in the way that we do. But having even just a little bit of just that teacher voice and pushing it out on a social media or our website, I think it goes a long way into helping them tell our story. Because again, we want their trust, we want their confidence.
Fantastic. Ooh, a lot of golden nuggets. Cesar, I picked up on some of those similar golden nuggets that you mentioned in the chat. Thanks for capturing that quote. So we've talked about strategic themes. We have talked about how do we go about centering the voices of our learners through different opportunities. What I'd love to do now is just kind of continue to work our way down this communication funnel and really focus on this topic of campaigns. It was brought up earlier. Juliette, could you kick us off and share with us any tips that you have for learner-centered campaigns inside your school district?
Yeah, so an idea that comes to mind, we actually just recently launched this school year, we launched a dual language immersion program at a new school. This is our second school in the district to have this program. And so we kind of started several months beforehand to start pushing this program out to try to drive that enrollment. And as the school year came on, we still kind of needed to fill those classes. So what we ended up doing was going out to that class, interviewing the teacher that's teaching it, talking to some parents and the principal about the benefits, especially for our African American students, because that's really kind of a secondary group that we want to highlight and to kind of give them that ability to learn a second language. So we pushed out not only a press release, we pushed out a video, our social media push, created an advertisement through Facebook, and really tried to push it in as many ways as I could. And that was just kind of one sort of campaign idea that we've pushed recently, but there's so many out there that's so hard to think of. But one of the things that I've also used, and I know some folks are a little hesitant to use artificial intelligence in their campaign planning. But that's kind of one of the things that I've learned to incorporate in my work. And if it's as simple as a prompt of like, we have a new dual language enrollment program or immersion program launching, give me some ideas on how I can push this out. And ChatGPT will give you a whole list on how to do that. You take it, you tailor it. And that's really kind of been a big help for me as I launch the different campaigns that we have here at our school district.
Yeah, I think we're still again kind of in our infancy phase with a lot of this. So a lot of it is more in-person type meetings as we're kind of kicking off the campaign. Like I had mentioned earlier, we're going to each of the parent organizations as a starting point so that we can get our message kind of widespread. Kind of building off what Juliette said as well. And one of our big moves this year is really kind of getting a focus around career technical education. We're making some pretty big transitions with that. And that was one of the ideas coming out of the strategic planning process. And in order to do that, a couple of groups that we know we're going to need to engage with here sooner rather than later, and we've already kind of started, but it needs to be a little bit more formalized, are the the Chamber of Commerce here in our city, and also our Business Advisory Council. We've got a really strong Business Advisory Council. We've got a strong manufacturing base here in our town. And we have a growing medical field here in our town as well. The Cleveland Clinic, which obviously is internationally known, actually just opened up a hospital here in Mentor last year, right around this time actually, and we've been engaging with them as well. I actually was just at their advisory board meeting yesterday talking about some of the education components that we have, and they were actually talking about some of the job vacancies that they have. And as we were just talking in that room with several other organizations present as well, they were able to give us a couple of nuggets that we're going to be able to pull into that CTE conversation that we're having. So our Business Advisory Council this year is revolving all around those career technical education programs and how we can develop those. We're becoming our own standalone CTE provider in Mentor now, as opposed to being part of a vocational school or a compact of schools, just because we have such an interest from our students, and we want to make sure that we're putting those programs together that are going to be of interest to them. So we'll be engaging with that group here fairly quickly. With our Chamber of Commerce, every year I do a State of the Schools address at one of the Chamber of Commerce meetings. That room, it probably has about 200 or 300 of our business leaders in the community present, and the speech this year will be all around the pillars of our strategic plan, with the idea of trying to engage with them to support our students in some of their career interests and some of the experiential learning that we want them to have now. So those are a couple of those campaigns that we're going to continue to push. You know, we got the parents involved, we got our business advisory, and then our Chamber of Commerce, really just to try and bring the family, the school district, and the business community together, to really make sure that we've got a purposeful, meaningful experience lined up for kids.
Just as we think about this idea of campaigns, we've got two great examples of intentional campaigns that are aligned to our strategic themes. Intentional campaigns are being designed for in-person, face-to-face engagement experiences, and intentional campaigns related to opportunities to engage folks around a key strategic theme through digital. If we could just pause real fast, Juliette, kind of come back to you real fast. One tip, if I am a participant right now thinking about entertaining, jumpstarting a learner center campaign to communicate and engage my school community, what's one tip that you encourage them to think about as they go to create that campaign? And then Craig, same question for you on the in-person side of it.
Think about your audience. Who are you trying to reach? Because messaging needs to be tailored. Are you trying to engage your parents? Are you trying to engage your staff? The partners that we have in the community, or just the community in general? I think what ends up happening a lot is that we just kind of do a blanket statement or a blanket campaign that's not really targeted, and it's not specific. So you're not really reaching anybody. You're just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks. So I think thinking about your audience and how to reach them is critical to kind of figuring out what those next steps look like.
Use the kids. The kids have really been the ones, I think, that have sold this entire concept, this entire process, and all of our big moves to the important stakeholders in our school community. I'm not going to lie, we've got a very challenging board of education here in our town, and to see because we had a far right politically leaning board member and a far left leaning politically leaning board member, both on the guiding coalition, and and again, I know Brittany's on the call here, but Brittany Griffin, who led that strategic planning process for us, um, she made sure that each meeting that we had students there to kick it off. And it was a student panel. We had our elementary kids one time, we had middle school kids one time, we had high school kids another, and then we had middle school and high school kids that were sitting in every single guiding coalition. Those are the people that the adults in the room wanted to hear from. They didn't want to hear from me. They didn't really want to hear from our principals or our curriculum director. They wanted to hear from the kids, because the kids will be very, almost brutally honest about their experience. And to be able to pull that experience out of them, I think, is what allows you to build something that is so powerful for the entire school community moving forward, because they know the kids were involved in doing that.
So we've got a variety of people joining our call today, representing a lot of different districts from across the country, makeups, serving a diverse group of school communities. I'm looking to the two of you to spend a little time for us right now, to give us some advice, some how do you, uh, maybe an example or two, and maybe some thinking behind how you went about doing this. Juliette, you mentioned it before. How as a storyteller, whether I'm a PR director, whether I'm a superintendent, whether I'm a classroom teacher, whatever my title or position may be, how how do I go about making my stories, my communications relatable? Keyword relatable. How would you give me some advice or some tips or some strategies to be able to do that effectively?
Again, I think it goes back to your audience, and keeping in mind that you don't speak the same language all the time. And what I mean by that is that educators tend to use a lot of edu-speak. They use a lot of words like pedagogy, which drives me nuts because nobody knows what that word means. So really just kind of drilling down to like your audience, like, is your parent going to know what you're talking about? And just simplifying the language, simplifying the outreach. When we talk about our tenants, for instance, one of our key pillars is unlocking brilliance. That by itself doesn't really necessarily mean anything. So how can we make that into something that they understand? So if I'm trying to sell this idea that we at Lynwood Unified are unlocking brilliance in our students, how are we doing that? We're doing that by providing these innovative programs like CTE or dual enrollment. For example, this year we had our first class of community college graduates. So they took dual enrollment classes, they graduated high school and community college at the same time. And that's unlocking brilliance. We're providing these students these opportunities. Even like subliminal messaging, I tend to kind of use that a lot, to kind of drill these ideas into folks without them knowing that I'm doing it. So I think those are kind of just some examples, making it easy for people to understand, and making it hands-on or making it something that they can see, um, as opposed to just using a lot of words that don't necessarily mean a whole lot to them.
I would say along those lines too, again, you have to make, like Juliet said, you have to make it relatable to the audience. And I kind of lean into my background a little bit. And before I got into the superintendent role, I was in curriculum for a while, but prior to that, I was in data and assessment, and I always lean into some of the data points, because um, a, a lot of times some of our skeptics want to know why, and if you can describe to them the why, then they start to understand a little bit more. And that's why I really taking some time to develop what our scorecard is going to be for the success metrics that we're going to use to measure our goals that we have with the strategic planning process. But we really leaned into a lot of the data components pretty early on with our guiding coalition, whether it was survey data that we had, whether it was anecdotal data that we had from students. academic achievement data. Again, I know we talked a little bit about career technical education programs, but one of our big things that kind of drove a lot of our work is we've got a wait list for a lot of our career technical education programs that we just don't have the capacity when we're, I hate to say because we're partnering with other school districts, but those school districts were taking some of our seats. Well, the interest has gone so high in our district now that we've got, 16 to 17% of our kids that are interested in being in career technical education programs aren't able to get into those programs now because we don't have the capacity. By being our own comprehensive now, that's going to open up that those seats to allow our students to be part of that. And again, that type of education where kids are really engaged in something that they love to do, that gets them there, that makes them behave. It keeps them involved in what's going on in the school itself. It keeps them out of trouble after school hours as well because they've got things that they really love to do. And being able to share some of that with our community as we went through the process of creating this, and now as we're rolling it out even more, I think leaning into that data and being able to say, here's what we're doing and here's why, and they understand that and they jump right on board with that then as well. And again, from that politically charged environment, that brings us into some common ground because everybody wants what's best for the kids in the district.
You two have done a dynamite job today, really showcasing the importance of having a variety of mediums in your storytelling. We've talked about videos today. We've talked about social media presence. We've talked about in-person type settings and a variety of other things. Can you share a little bit about how do you decide which type of medium to use for a specific communication purpose? And from your perspective, why is it so important to have such a diverse presence of mediums in your storytelling? I've followed Mentor, I've followed Lynwood. Juliette, your superintendent gives you rave reviews about the variety of ways in which you do storytell. And Craig, I'm sure you want to give some kudos to your team as well. But can you talk to us a little bit about how are you deciding which medium to use? And then why is it so important to have such a diverse presence of mediums?
I rely on my version of Juliette so much. And her name is Kristen Estes. And ironically enough, our videographer, his name is Sean Estes. They are related, but they're not married. It's sister-in-law, brother-in-law. But what a dynamic duo, though, because the great thing about Kristen, and I'm sure Juliette does this in her community as well, is she's able to again take those education stories that she knows from her background as a news reporter. That's going to be newsworthy. That's something that we want to make sure we take a little bit more time on it. So we might be doing more of a full-length video that might be 3 or 4 minutes long. If there's something that might be a cute little thing that's going on in a classroom, but might have a tie into something with the strategic plan, okay, we're going to do a quick little 60 to 90-second video clip of me introducing what it is, what the connection to the strategic plan is, and then let's show what the kids are doing. And you put that on social media and the parents just eat that stuff up. So that's kind of how we decide how to kind of work the video side of things. If we have something that is going to be a broader story to tell, for example, this evening we've got we started a new series here this year that we're calling Cardinal Cafes, and what we're doing is we're picking one topic every other month for me to come in, do a quick presentation. Here's what this is. Here's what it's about. Here's some of the data. Here's some of the alignment to what it is that we're doing. What questions do you have? Tonight, we're talking about our state report card system and how Mentor is doing in comparison to other school districts around here, how we're doing compared to past years in our district, just from an achievement standpoint. from a post-secondary education standpoint, what are our kids doing after graduation, those types of things. So we're going through a kind of an in-depth conversation with that. So now we're talking more of a, 30 to 45-minute type of conversation with some Q&A where we can actually engage with the community on something that is an important topic for us. For example, we're going to be talking about school safety in one of our Cardinal Cafes this year. We're going to be talking about transportation, which has been a hot button topic in our district this year. And Marlon and I are chuckling a little bit, and I'm sure Brittany is as well. Our transportation coordinator quit on the second day of school this year. So I've been running transportation and busing, and it's been interesting. But we just hired somebody new, and they will be starting in January. So what we want to do is have a more in-depth conversation with our community about what we've learned through this experience, because it's going to help us out in the long run. But again, that's one of those broader topics that we think we want to kind of dig into the weeds a little bit more with and be able to share that with everybody as we go through. So that's kind of how we kind of figure out what type of medium we're going to use, what the length of that medium is going to be, and how we want to tell our story in those different ways.
And like your communications person, Craig, I was also a news reporter back in the day. Not a weather girl, but I did work at a print newspaper. So that's where my lens actually comes from. I usually think about like, what is newsworthy? What would I, if I was a reporter, what would I want to cover? Whether that's, a budget story, or maybe just like a visit from a mascot from a sports league coming to see our students. I really think about like first like traditional media, press releases, media advisories, and reaching out to that news outlet. So that's kind of where I start. And then from there, I kind of figure out, okay, what else can we do? If it's not something that I think that the media will care about, okay, how else can I use this? It might be just like a quick little news e-blast that we send out to our community, like, look, here's what this school did today. It doesn't take a ton of effort, but it still provides that information out to our community and builds that positivity that we want. If it's visually interesting, then I'll think about, okay, could this be great for pictures, or can we make a reel out of this? Or if it's a more of a feature length type of video for YouTube, I stick to maybe like 2 minutes or less, because I know that a lot of people don't really have the attention span that maybe they used to. So keeping it quick, keeping it interesting. How can we share this really great piece of news that we have? So I use traditional media, I use social media, I use photography, video, traditional print products like newsletters, and posters. So there's so many tools that we have at our disposal, and it's really just kind of like, how do I want to push this out, and what do I think our community might care about?
Well, my brain is on overload. Super, super excited for the conversation and grateful for the two of you to spend some time with us. For our participants, as we come to a close, Learner Center Collaborative, we always want to bring closure to every time we get together to connect. So as we think about wrapping up, what I would love for you to do inside the chat is just share your response to one or two of these questions that we're posing right now. Give us a chance to see what's on your mind and what resonated with you as far as the conversation today. Would love to hear what you're thinking. Please drop that in the chat for us. To our special guests, Superintendent Craig Heath and our good friends from Lynwood, Juliette, thank you so much for being here. Your superintendent was definitely spot on when he was talking about your skill set. So glad you're able to join us. Do want to give you a chance to have some closing comments. Craig, you started us off. Juliette, this time, would love to turn the microphone over to you to give you a chance to share some closing comments for us, please.
Yeah, I want people to know that storytelling is not as intimidating or as scary as it sounds. It's the fun part of education. I know that Craig probably deals with, budgets and sort of data and all these sorts of things, but storytelling is that fun part. How can we make this data point into a story in a fun way? How can we highlight our students? How can we highlight our teachers? It's such a great medium and a really fun way to engage our community. So that's kind of what I want to close off with. Just don't be afraid. Use AI if you can to give you some ideas. And it's a great way to reach out and engage people in a completely different way.
Yeah, and I think storytelling is probably the fun part of the job for me at least, because again, you can kind of control the message, you can control the story, you can pick those items that you know are going to resonate with the community in a positive way, and really again take some of that stuff that's on the periphery and refocus it to what we really need to do in education, and that's focus on the experiences our kids get. So that I think that's the last thing that I would close with is we're all in it for the same reasons. We're here to create the best possible experience for every single kid. You know, every single student has a gift. We got to find out what that gift is and build something for them to be successful at. And then, you know, any way we can share that success story with the masses, that's the best way to close out a day. Just knowing that we've made that difference in someone's life.
Love it. Love it. Thank you both so much. Really appreciate you being here. If you get a chance, give us some virtual snaps for our two dynamic panelists. Thank you much for coming out and being here with us today. I do want to share with you, if you're looking to continue to stay connected to Learner Center Collaborative, please check out our website. We've got a number of great resources that will impact your learner experiences. We've got a wonderful competency-based reporting playbook that our team really spearheaded with the leadership of Brianna Hansen, one of our great teammates. You'll see some information there that we've got available as far as different learner-centered experiences and capacity building opportunities for your staff, as well as a number of online resources and online courses that are learner-centered featured. As we come to a close today, we want you to stay connected to us. If you want to continue the conversation about a learner center movement in your school community, please reach out to us. Please follow us on all our social media handles. Visit our website. We've got a number of blogs, impact stories, bright spots that will be featured on behalf of our organization. You can see the contact information and social media handles for both Mentor and Lynwood school districts. Thank you so much for being here. You could be anywhere else in the world, but you chose to be here with us. On behalf of the Learner Center Collaborative family and our special guest today, we want to say thank you for your service. Wish you the best of happy holidays, and have a great rest of the week. Thanks so much for being here, and keep doing great work for our learners.